I've not always necessarily been known as the biggest fan of the aesthetics of the decent espresso machine, but I had the opportunity to go visit my friend Adrian and to actually try what the coffee tasted like. And so I know the science behind this machine and the development that went into it, which I have been a big fan of. Just it wasn't necessarily didn't appeal to me as a machine, but I was very interested to take up the opportunity to go and see what the coffee tasted like. So that morning, what happened was I had, I wake up early, so I had two double espressos, just to, get me going. Then I jumped on my motorbike and I went down to see my son, who's kind of on the way to Adrian. And there we had breakfast with my son, which was really nice. And they had some kind of nice espresso there, so I had a couple more double espressos. So I was already on 6 espressos by the time I reached Adrian. Might be a little bit hyper in this video, but I'm just going to share the little video with you of my first taste of the same coffee. So what I did was I took the coffee that I used on my Eureka grinder, my 64 mil flat burr grinder that I've got here at home, and then and my Rocket R58, and then trying to keep that in mind after having another 4 espressos on the way, I landed at Adrian's place and took the beans with me and then made the coffee with him. What I would say the first thing that kind of came across to me, what I didn't quite understand was he didn't spend any time really dialing it in. And that was kind of like, I was like, well, how's this going to work? This is not going to work, but it worked. And of course, what was happening, and you see one of the questions that I asked was, what was happening was the, you get it in the right area, in the right zone, but to be honest with you, the machine is able to sense when it's channeling, when it needs to go softer or harder, corrects a lot of the mistakes for you. And what came out, literally what you see is the very first shot, without any prep, without any questions that he made, and it did actually taste better than the one I had made this morning. Although texture is very important to me, and it didn't have the same body. But then I think I was making 22 grams and he was making 18, so there's possibly that there as well. Nevertheless, I was quite impressed by it. Also, what I've seen in all the videos is that the sound that the machine makes always comes across quite loud, and I noticed it comes out quite loud in this video too, but in real life it didn't seem to be as loud as it comes across in the video. I don't know if that makes sense or what that means, but I always thought, one of the things that always annoyed me, or I thought would annoy me watching the videos on the Decent, is that sounds like, what does it sound like? There's I know what it sounds like. It sounds like something, but in practice it's not annoying at all. It's really quite a lot quieter than I thought it would be. So there's that. That was really good. What else came across to me about it? The graphs looked like I almost went into some kind of epileptic fit looking at the screen the first time. Although, Adrian broke it down, and, I guess you can kind of make a lot more sense out of that. What actually made more sense, and I didn't really realize because I hadn't paid enough attention, I guess, is that the group head on the Decent has all the controls in it, and you don't need the screen. To me, that's kind of a big deal, because that screen is great for engineers, and Adrian is a very technical guy. It's great for engineers to evaluate, and perhaps for doing troubleshooting, etc. But I don't want to look at that when I'm making my morning, Zen espresso. I kind of want to push a button or whatever, pull a lever and have the experience. But it was very interesting to know that you don't need to have that tablet sitting on top. The other thing I noted, or Adrian pointed out to me, was that some of the build quality could be improved. Some of the lacquer was coming off on the handles, which is not something I've seen on an espresso machine before. I mean, I guess most of them are sort of plastic, which wouldn't peel off, and they've opted for some other material, sort of lacquered wood or something, which is nice to begin with, but comes apart later. So there's probably some improvements they can make, and I'm sure they are. But overall, the machine's you know, it was quite small, and I was impressed with the results that it gave. It would drive me insane though, because I would spend ages pushing buttons, fiddling, downloading things, you know. But for geeks, this is a geek machine for sure. Anyway, enough of me talking. Let's go see the video. Okay, well, hold on a second. We're checking out the decent machine, which is pretty decent. I understand, Adrian. Is this the best coffee machine you've ever had?
Well, that's not hard.
Wait, you had what did you have before? You had a Sage Barista Express, right?
No, Bristol Pro.
Barista Pro.
And I've got an Aeropress, which I still think is the best coffee machine on the planet.
Not for making espressos, obviously, but yeah. What do you drink with it? Like you make Americanos?
Long blacks.
Long blacks?
Everything from sort of 2-to-1 ratio shots up to what you call a lager sort of style, which is effectively a long black in one shot.
Do you have a technique that you like? Because there's so many different Aeropress type techniques, right?
I do.
I got one of these. They're great. Oh, is that mine?
Yes.
Okay, that's why I got one.
So on the niche, I dial to around 24, 25. I tend not to overdose, so I stay at around 18 grams. I use a Prismo, so I don't filter with paper.
You don't filter with paper?
I want the oils. Yeah, so it's a metal
Okay,
filter.
I've heard of those. I thought they would kind of give you a bit of a harsher taste though.
It's actually okay, because what you do is if you basically fill this half up with 100 Celsius water, then put the beans on top,
right,
and leave it for 7 minutes.
Okay.
Like some people leave it for 9 minutes.
Kind of like almost like the James Hoffman French press.
Kinda, yeah. I found that works better for some of my beans in terms of actually getting a more rounded flavour.
Nice.
And then basically top it up, stir it, but don't turn it round. I think there's this thing amongst the YouTube creators where you just go back and forth to not disturb the beautiful bed.
Right. There's so many different techniques.
Which is fine. Of course, you are screwed if you lose this because a spoon can't do the same.
It's not the same kind of paddle taste.
And then just push down slowly, and you're done. While travelling, if you buy pre-ground stuff that's not taro too bad,
yeah,
you have to. It works fine. You just have to press it incredibly slow because it's a coarser grind,
right?
And you dawn it out like.
My Aeropress technique is crap. But tell me about this machine, because this is I'm really interested in. I've never seen a decent board. Oh, I've done something.
Yeah. So this is the group head controller, and they're really proud of this because you don't need this tablet thing. You can actually do everything off this if you want to.
Okay.
So it can be a very clean machine. Ignore that.
Yeah.
And everything is being done off this means, well, what the hell do you do? You can actually adjust the flow rate with this.
Right.
While you're actually...
Flow, not pressure, right?
You can do both.
You can do both.
Yeah.
Okay.
It kind of blows your brain, doesn't it?
Ah.
So I've got what's called a lever profile called Londinium, which is actually dated.
The Londinium?
Yeah.
I've literally been talking to some guys on my YouTube channel about the Londinium last week.
Yeah, well, I've come to the conclusion that if I do replace the decent, I'll actually just replace it with a lever machine. Really?
That's interesting.
Yeah. Because 90% of the shots I pull are actually with a lever profile. And then what blows my brain is I use the blooming techniques.
Yeah.
And I go, can I do those on a lever machine? Yes, I can. Of course, you just adjust your timing after you've wet the puck before you continue.
Well, some of them, if you've got the spring one, you can bring it down and then you can control the pre-infusion. And some of them have got a pump as well to control that pre-infusion phase. In the
have you seen the Argos? It's
I have.
A new shiny, very slim, very sleek, very small kitchen friendly lever machine.
There's a whole bunch of new ones coming out.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
It's nice. But anyway, shall I do you something?
Yeah. So this whole menu, I mean, this looks
Oh,
very
so-
complicated.
well,
I have
this-
to be honest with you.
This is
looks
actually this is
pretty
the
hardcore.
Mimoja Cafe front end. Is you can actually change how it looks. So so in terms of skin, I can actually make it look. Let's put it on DSX.
That hasn't helped. It still looks incredibly complicated.
And then restart.
Are you rebooting your coffee machine?
Yeah, it's just reloading the skin now. There's actually
Does it come with a lot of like software updates that you have to do?
so there's
Do you maintain it
three
like a Windows?
so there's 3 tracks of release. There's stable, which is actually the same as beta at the moment, and there's nightly. And your recipes for making coffee come down with that, or you can go to GitHub and go get your own recipes, or you can go to Visualizer, look at someone else's shot, and go, I like that shot, and download it. So one of the shots that you can download now is called Extractamundo. And
Like the name.
you don't need to rely on Decent putting it in the profile. You just go get it, and you get it on this thing,
Right.
and then you do it. So, as you know, I'm not the world's biggest fan of the Android ecosystem.
Right.
So I treat this.
I didn't know that actually.
I
Oh,
treat,
of course, no, I do know that. What am I talking about? You're an iPhone guy, right? Security.
I treat this as a pure appliance, and I don't do anything else on this.
Right.
So I literally have to open a socket to talk from another computer over it. Anyway, I've got this. Can't talk to anything else. This is isolated.
Londinian profile.
Yeah, so it's got the
This is
profile
a
that's
touch screen, so I gotta
isolated.
be careful what I
Yeah,
touch
it's
here.
a touch screen. But what it's also got here is it's got my last shot.
Uh-huh.
And if I click on this, you can actually see.
Sorry, I'm just going to have some kind of fit here at the moment. Looking at that.
So you suffer from data overload when you first get this thing,
Yeah.
but then you start to figure out what's actually vaguely important. The yellow line is puck resistance, and if you haven't done your puck right, that will be garbage.
Right.
However, now we've
So you want that to be reasonably smooth, right?
well, you don't want great big plummets during the start of the shot.
Uh-huh.
It's basically as it feeds water in, you're getting resistance from the puck, but then when the puck's fully wet,
Yeah.
the resistance will go down again. So you see this sort of up down thing, and so that's one thing that I look for. But now I've been told I mustn't look for this because the puck resistance measurement is unreliable. But
Is that
so
what-
it's after I trained
from the
myself.
from the software or just from the dynamics of the
Yeah, I really should do the same profile.
do the same profile. I want to test what this. I'm a little bit excited now because this will be my 8th espresso this morning. But I want to taste because this is what I had this morning on my machine.
Okay.
I'm interested to know what it's going to taste like. I'm just going to take a sip. I'm going to throw it. Don't be insulted. But I don't think I can handle. I can handle 8 espressos.
I'm going to pressure up to it.
I'll be riding my motorbike back home afterwards.
Really?
I'll be like, come on, go faster.
It's going to be exciting.
8 espressos before noon, that's impressive.
So you see a different graph with this. You don't have to care about the graphs.
That's good because I
There we go, first drips.
So does this compensate if you screw up the grind?
Yes. So they've actually got. So I've got 2 adaptive profiles on here.
Uh-huh.
That one is a blooming profile that basically if it tests the flow rate, and if it's too fast, it slows it down.
Right.
And if it's not fast enough, it bumps the pressure up. So it's actually got dynamic up-down stages within the shot.
It knows.
And that's the beauty of this. Okay, so that's the same.
It's very different from the shot that I pulled.
Mm.
It's less texture, but there's more flavor. Less texture but more flavor than what I get from my Rocket.
And what grinder did you use?
I use a Eureka 65mm flatbed grinder.
Oh, I was thinking.
The grinder probably makes the biggest difference. I don't know.
I mean, people say that this one you should just get the chocolate. You know, it's very chocolatey, but I don't necessarily agree. But your mignon, your brook grinder is meant to be.
It's not a mignon. It's a Eureka.
Oh, yeah.
It's a commercial grinder, effectively. You know, it's a big hopper fed commercial grinder.
Yeah, but with the flat burr versus the conical, it's that you're meant to have a clearer.
That's right. You're supposed to have a little bit more clarity. I find that it doesn't. I find it's very good for making chocolatey espressos, but being able to separate the clarity on the different flavors, you get a hint of it, but you don't really get a lot of definition. I find, but you know, it's good for what it is. It makes great shots. I have to say.
What's the workflow like?
It's all right. And the first thing in the morning is I have to purge, and I always makes me cry because I'm wasting a bunch of coffee. And then after that, I just put it in, and it's timed, and it comes out. I weigh it. It's fast. 8 seconds. That's good. It's a nice machine. I actually don't have any problems with it at all. But I'm a single dosing kind of guy, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense for that. Yeah. It's delicious though. It's nice. And actually it's a little quieter. A lot of the videos where I saw this being reviewed, for some reason that pump sounded louder than it actually is.
Oh, so some people include, I don't think Lance Hendrick's done this. He's got one of these. They've actually taken the lid off, and they've actually put sound deadening material behind the pumps. There's also you can actually invert the pumps as well, and that changes the whole profile of the machine. And some people have made it almost totally silent.
Oh, that's interesting. By the way, Lance Hendrick, did you see at the SEA show? Did you see that the Breville or Sage have made a machine?
Oh, the golden.
Lance Hendrick, and it's gold. It's so bling.
It's very tacky.
Have you seen it? It's so tacky.
But what's kind of cool is the fact it's got a flow control dial,
I
and
know.
pressure control dial. So it's basically got all the control this has, but you've got to twiddle the knobs yourself.
It's kind of a cool machine. I don't really mind it being so blingy because it's right out there. It's very Lance Hendrick, isn't